In this video, we're going to talk about creating that one-stop shop for students, whether they are in a hybrid model or a remote model, because they need to know exactly what's going on, whether they're in school, out of school, or 100% out of school, especially if, our environment can change on a dime. All of a sudden we could be doing a hybrid and remote, and then by the next day, everyone could be remote. So it's nice to have that one-stop shop for everybody, as well as talk about some of the calendar expectations for you for the 2021 school year, just to kind of keep it the same across all secondary, classes, especially if parents have kids in different schools. It's just more reason to create that one-stop shop. So in the page that you just were on, I have some things linked from when we did the 3-hour course in June, just as a refresher, because we did talk about calendar very, very briefly, just to kind of put it out there. But when we're talking about one-stop shop, I'm going to switch to my test course real quick, is I have a couple things that I've listed upcoming. So they're over here for the kids to click on, but they're also over here because I've attached due dates to all of them. What I want to point out, and we've mentioned this before, but just to hit it home, as a student, I would obviously see more than this, but they would see all of those different things that are coming up. So does worksheet submission say exactly where it's at? It doesn't have in parentheses behind it social studies or math. If I hover over it, I can see that it is in the test course. So here is another one. I can see it's part of a health class. This one is for our middle school. So a student would be able to kind of go over that, figure out what is what. So if they say, okay, today's Friday, August 14th, I have a Zoom session. Oh, that's for XYZ course. So they can click on it, get there. That Monday, they're ready to, they have an assessment. They can click on it. It would take them right to that assessment. The nice thing in going back to that one-stop shop kind of mantra is that if they know they have an assessment in social studies, they don't have to go up to their courses, find the social studies course, go into it, find it in the folder. They can grab it right here. The nice thing is if they did and wanted to go to that course, they simply could, and even still, they don't have to go searching for it in folders. And, we talked about course structure and organization as well. They don't have to go and look for it. It's right here. The other thing I wanted to point out is we talked a little bit about, publishing things versus unpublishing. When publishing something, like all of these are published items, students in your course can see them. So let's say I have an assessment created, but I don't want students to see it. I'm going to unpublish it. And you'll see it will eventually kind of gray itself out. And I'm just going to refresh because I wanted to point something out. If you notice, it took it away off the calendar. So what you can do, and we've talked about this before, if you want them to know about it, you can simply, if you publish it, it's going to be there for them to take. If it's unpublished right now, as it's unpublished, it is not going to be here. So rather than creating an event for situations like this, and not just assessment, but in discussions, assignments, things like that, you don't want to give yourself double work. So I don't want to have to now go create an event and say, okay, we have an assessment here, because all it is hidden. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish it. And then you're going to say, well, couldn't a student just in theory take it? And what I'm going to show you, and I know we briefly mentioned this in our initial 3-hour training, but it's now back on the calendar. And as of right now, if I don't change anything else, a student would technically be able to click on this and take it. But what you want to do when you have a lot of these options and different things in schools, like I said, in discussions, things like that, right now submissions are disabled. So even if they did click on it, they still could not take it until it was available. And again, it's published, that's okay, but I have the submissions disabled. So they could click on it, but they wouldn't be able to start the test, see any questions, things like that. So again, rather than creating work for yourself, when you are setting these things up, and actually, let me go back out. I'll act like I'm creating a new one. If I'm creating an assignment, I'm attaching a due date to it, and I'll do the 20th. We'll say test number 2. Going to be on the 20th. And then down here, this little drop down says submissions enabled. So right now, if I hit create, they would be able to submit things. If I don't want them to do that yet, I can simply click it. So it grays out. And when I hit create, it'll put it over here, show it on the calendar. I love the little difference in icons so students kind of know what it is rather than just the, calendar logo. but it's going to show test number 2. When they click on it, they're not going to be able to post any submissions, and the students would get that kind of message that this assignment is currently not accepting submissions. So that's what I really wanted to point out. And, kind of going back to that home thing, where they see that one-stop shop and just kind of managing that as a teacher. Think about it from their perspective as you're adding things, and that's what the expectation is, to add those assessments, activities, project, anything coming up in your class, so they know what's coming up. Again, especially being in different environments, it's going to be very, very helpful. But one of those things is up top, and we talked about this before briefly, but going to that app, as a student, right now they would be able to see all calendars, and they would be able to overlay them. They could say, okay, I want to see this course, I want to see science, I want to see social studies, I want to see math, I want to see tech ed, all those different things. I have a ton of calendars, but a student might only have 8 or 10. They can turn on or off, and all of those items would show up. So having the ability that students have to kind of overlay all their calendars really just helps them from a management perspective. So it's very, very important. That's why the expectation for the year is that you're adding all those upcoming assessments, projects, Zoom links, things like that. So when a student goes to that homepage, as well as a parent, they can see exactly what's coming up, what day, and it's going to be very, very helpful for a student, whether they're in group A for hybrid, group B for hybrid, 100% remote. It's going to be so much easier. The more things you put on there, obviously, the better.